there's just enormous because there is an enormous amount of information about the benefit of startup mentoring, and you will see a lot of exciting stories. And there's two common themes when you do that. The first is that the impact of mentoring is extremely significant. Just a few discussion absolutely helps startup, sometimes fix a strategy, fix a problem, improve the communication, and it also gives to the mentee, enormous boost in confidence and moral support. So, mentoring is important work. The second theme, which is very important, and that for us is that mentors have as much to gain from mentoring, for mentorship as the mentees, not only through, because when we mentor startup, we learn about new things like technology, but also from the great feeling of being involved with all those, dreamers and visionaries that bring new solutions. So two themes that make a lot of sense for us, to have launched WHAM as an initiative for the Wharton alumni. So how did it start? Well, I think in the first confinement, we were aware, obviously everybody working with startups, for great anxieties, among many entrepreneurs, and this coincided with the UK, having two things, having a very active startup team, investment team with Doug and Thomas, that are here tonight, but also Lloyd as a new president, who is a big startup investor, and promoter, and they very quickly they helped the idea, they promoted the idea with the help also of Lauren, from the alumni office. And then came Jérôme Legrand, who I hope is also here tonight, who convinced the French to join, which was no small feat. And then with Aviva Brooks, help finalize the design and the framework of the initiative. So, this is how WHAM started in the middle of the COVID situation. And we got a lot of comfort that so many people responded well, and it seemed to fit a real need, both from the startups, but also from the people, from all our alumni, friends, who wanted to help, to be proactive. Earlier on, we wanted to keep this initiative very simple. We wanted no bureaucracy. So looking at all the different possibilities, we made a very simple framework, and the framework, as you can see on the slide, it's about strategy. It's not about expert advice. It's not about doing a project work for them. Because a lot of the the alumni don't have the time. It's really about talking about the strategy, looking at the strategy, using all our experience, world experience, studies, whatever, to talk about the strategy. And we put it into a framework of 2 months, 1 hour per week, which seems to be a good balance, and something feasible. But obviously, the reality is many mentorship, eventually get their own schedule and get their own agreements, And as it stays on this slide, the biggest thing beside the success and the first thing we have done and so on, it was great, is that it brought a lot of European alumni together. I've never met and talked to so many, Wharton alumni, and think it's the same with everybody in the big team now that is, taking care of this project. And Emily can show you now, where we are today. Emily, if you want.
Thank you, Jérôme. So where is WHAM today? So Jérôme mentioned how new this initiative was. So I'd like to just start with we are the first initiative of this kind in Europe, and I think also in the whole of the Wharton alumni ecosystem. So we are quite pioneering this type of activity from alumni within Wharton. The second thing I wanted to point to is that we are currently active in 8 countries. And we're growing, so hopefully we'll add Spain very soon, and we'll have also where there are a few white spots on the map, and we hope we'll fill them very soon. A third number that is quite impressive given how recent this initiative is that we've already had 28 mentorships that have either completed or are still ongoing, and there are 4 that are currently being matched. Some of these mentorships span across different countries, and this really shows the strength of the Wharton network. A fourth point that I wanted to highlight is that we already have over 110 alumni volunteers, and we hope that after this presentation we'll have even more, and if you have, you will sign up if you haven't done so yet. To conclude, I'd like to point to the little table on the right, where I'm highlighting our country leaders, and you can see how Jérôme and Aviva are responsible for France, for Germany, Finn for the Netherlands, Ian for Greece, Arthur for Russia, and we're currently looking for a leader for Italy. So if we have Italians that are connected, please volunteer. It's a great role, as I am myself responsible for the UK and Switzerland. So on this, I give it to you, to Jérôme, so you can explain how WAAN works.
Yeah, and I take this opportunity to welcome. We have some Spanish friends, alumni tonight as participants, and it's very exciting because Spain is recognized, 2 countries in Spain, Madrid and Barcelona, as part of the top 10 European cities for startups. So we're looking forward to seeing some more Spanish mentors and Spanish startups. So very quickly, because once again, we wanted to keep this extremely simple, no bureaucracy, and the main work is done by all those leaders who, when we receive a startup, basically we are going to try to talk to the startup or talk to the incubator or talk to the angel group who's sending out the startup to understand what they want, to have a basic understanding. And we try to exclude if there is a startup that actually say, no, I just want to raise some money, I just want some contacts and help me to find clients. That's not what we do. And this happens. We've had those situations, So when we have startups to come in, we talk to them, and then we look at our list. We do the selection of and the matching of mentors between startup, because again, we don't want people to choose, who they want. We want to try to fit people together, and then we put them together. And then when they're well together, they go ahead and they have this mentoring. There is a mention of a charter. We have some documents, mainly prepared by Jérôme Legrand about. He did some research very good about what is the simplest mentoring charter for protection. That could be signed, and so there's some documents available for those who want it. And then the mentorship starts. Adults talk to each other. So this is where we are, and this is what we do. It's actually a lot of work, if I may add, to analyze each startup, but we're trying to do this so that when we bring the mentees, when we bring the mentors some proposal, we try to understand exactly what could be the angle that they could start working on right away. So what are the next steps now?
Thank you, Jérôme. So what are the next steps, and how can you help us? So of course, the most obvious one is register as a mentor. You should have received a newsletter, an email from your country club, and there must be a link. Otherwise, in some of our countries, there is also a link on the website of the club. And secondly, I would really encourage you to help us finding startups. The way we do this is by, as Jérôme mentioned it briefly, by contacting incubators and accelerators, or by using our networks. But given how quickly this initiative is growing, we would really appreciate if you could provide to your country leaders any leads you might have to startups, ideally pre-stage startups or incubators that are active in the space. So just to conclude, we reported here in the slide a few testimonials from some founders we've helped, and you can see what they appreciated about WAAN. And this is about the variety of skills from a solid business foundation to sector expertise to senior advice. So it's very broad, and any of you can be a mentor, and it's only about 1 hour per week for 2 months. So this is the end of the preparation, and we look forward to hearing your questions later in the webinar. Your country leaders will also be happy to answer any question if you contact them directly if you have further questions. So thank you very much, and George, it's up to you. I mean, with the AI studio.
Okay, thank you, Emily. I'm George Gusciani. I am MBA 08. I have been working in AI since 2012, first helping rising funds to startups, and then since 2017, developing my own algorithms in machine learning and deep learning, AI. This allowed me to see a lot of industries such as computer vision, natural language processing, but also quantitative finance, supply chain, ed tech recently, social sciences such as sociology and psychology and human resources. So we created AI Studio at Wharton UK Club at the end of 2020, actually second part of 2020. And the purpose of the AI Studio is twofold. First one is to fill the gap between traditional scientists and deep learning engineers. This is, in my opinion, a major break in implementing the optimal AI products, as AI researchers do not usually inject prior knowledge in any systematic way in their products. They usually start from the scratch and reinvent the wheel, and this process frequently ends up in being suboptimal. So our first purpose is to fill the gap by collaborating between Penn alumni and research and startups. The second purpose of our AI Studio is to fill the gap between AI and deep tech and the business world of practitioners such as Wharton alumni, who work in the field of product management, strategy, marketing, and finance. So designing the great AI product solution requires a completely different skill set than marketing the same product. And because of the hype in AI, these important details are ignored, and the result is again suboptimal. So the second, filling this gap, we plan to do by collaborating with Wharton alumni and research and startups. So far, we organized 3 events. First was with Wharton's AI and Business Programs Executive Director, Mary Perk. Second was with MIT's Gilbert Strang, who is one of pioneers of EdTech. He started first online class in 2001 and actually initialized the revolution of online teaching. And the third event was with NYU's Igor Halperin, who is a quant and who is one of pioneers, actually the only one in year 2000s, who applies AI to finance in a principled way since the early 2000s. We have a next event that will be held, 2 events actually that will be held in coming months. And they will be with our alumni and my friends with whom I collaborated a lot and who work at IBM, Samsung, Facebook, Philips, Google. And they, at some point in their lives, they had startups. Those startups were bought by those big companies, and now they work at those big companies. And they will share their experiences of entrepreneurship and challenges they handled with us and with the audience. This will obviously increase the vision or in general of our all initiatives. Well, there are a lot of synergies. That's why I'm here today with our initiatives such as WHAM and WAAN, mentoring, and our Angel Network. As we are building around AI a collaboration with the AI experts, Penn's research departments, collaborations with European research institutions, and we want to strengthen Wharton's alumni's involvement in the most up-to-date AI startups. So we do plan to mentor interesting startups and do attract interesting startups for fundraising. So there's a lot of synergies, and we hope to have a fruitful collaboration in coming months. So this was basically it. If you have any questions about AI or AI Studio, please feel free to ask me at the end of the event. Thank you so much for your attention. I think up to you, Doug and Thomas.
Thank you, George. My name is Thomas Agaman, and together with Doug, Clarissa, from whom you will hear in a moment, we co-chair the Wharton Angel Alumni Network in the UK. We've been privileged to work with a great number of great fellow alumni who contribute in different capacities to the success of WAAN. Our purpose is to connect entrepreneurs and early stage investors across Europe, and in doing so, bring together Wharton alumni to demonstrate what a great asset we have in the form of the school and each other. The two principal WAAN activities are thematic events, like the one George just spoke about, and pitch events, where we review startups seeking funding. So what startups are we targeting? Successful applicants tend to be tech-enabled businesses, headquartered in Europe, and those with high scalability potential. Overall, our approach is such that we do not exclude any industries, and we only ask that startups make a significant use of modern technology and apply high ethical standards. If we go to the next slide. So you might ask what the WAAN results are so far. We have had 7 pitch events over the 3.5 years we've been operating. Volunteers for the network have screened approximately 200 companies, of which 30 were invited to pitch, of which 8 received investment totaling in excess of £400,000. So on average, a successful startup was funded by the Wharton alumni with more than £50,000. As I mentioned at the beginning, in addition, we have had a number of thematic events, which included Angel 101, which we ran twice due to popular demand. Other events with themes of med tech, startup documentation, blockchain, and AI, as you just heard from George. With that, let me hand you over to Doug for a quick run through the WAAN investment process. Doug, do you want to take it from here?
Yep, sorry, just was muted. Yes, we have, as Thomas said, we've screened over 200 companies in order to get down to 30 companies that we put in front of our alumni. We use the GUS platform, which is a platform specifically designed for angel investing. Entrepreneurs are able to load their pitch decks and financial statements and other information onto the platform, and then it can be shared amongst a screening committee, and then ultimately any investors within at the pitch event who would like to participate. We generally, depending on the number of applicants we get per event, we may do a pre-screen. That's a very simple review. And we will give a simple rating. And then if once we get down to 10 to 12 applicants, we do a little bit more of an in-depth review of the application, look at their website, kick the tires. We may have questions to ask of the entrepreneurs. There'll be a little bit of back and forth. The screening committee hopes to get around, discuss 5 to 6 in specificity amongst themselves, with the idea that we'll have 3 or 4 finalists to actually come to the pitch event itself. Pitch events now, obviously, we had been doing live events. One of the benefits of lockdown has been that we've discovered virtual events, and I think we were going to stick to them. They're easier to manage, easier to track people, and easier to share and record the pitches themselves. All the finalists are given suggested guidelines for a successful pitch. Some people find those useful if they are relatively new. Others, have done this before, and so it's not that necessary for them. But we ask, one of the guidelines is that we're doing 15 minutes per company, so 7 minutes for presentation, 7 minutes for Q&A. We record these and upload them so that people who would either like to re-review that presentation, or if they missed the presentation itself, are able to see it. And then we ask investors who have seen the pitch to raise their hands, and GUST allows that as well, to register interest, and we form a deal team to review more in depth yet the company and the opportunity. So diligence is done in a coordinated manner. We try to find a deal team captain amongst, say, 5 people are interested amongst those that saw the event, and to pursue diligence on the company. We'll ask one of those people to be the captain. That really requires just coordinating schedules, scheduling a follow-up session with the company, scheduling and collecting questions from all of the deal team members, posing them to the company, and then creating any follow-up that is required after that. And then at the end of that process, which generally takes, by the time you get everybody's questions together and send them to the company responds, and maybe one follow-up, it's probably about 30 to 40 days. Investors make their individual decisions. There's no pressure to invest, even if you've gone through the process. And so far, we've made individual investments. We haven't gotten to, I think, the level of size where trying to do an SPV or a collective investment. We haven't done that yet. One thing that we wanted to mention, Thomas and I, is that there is a global and affinity club of Wharton called the Wharton Alumni Angels. We are going to be working more closely with them. And that is an opportunity. They have bigger deals. They're US headquartered. And we're going to be working with them in order to hopefully increase the number of angels that look at our transactions, so that we can have a bigger investment. Having bigger investment in a company obviously always allows you to have a little bit more sway in terms of what rights you get and what information you get going forward. So with that, I think that was the presentation that we wanted to make. I think now we'll open it up to Q&A from the attendees for any of the 5 of us to answer. There's been a few questions in the Q&A already that a couple of us have been trying to answer as we went ahead, but maybe for the benefit of those who haven't seen the Q&A, we'll quickly go through those and then see if anybody else has questions. The first question was about mentorships. It's from an anonymous attendee. I saw you completed 28 memberships. Did you help them raise financing? You're more interested in investing in financing. I think my answer was, you've now seen the angel and the mentoring processes are separate. But hopefully some of those mentees will ultimately want to come and pitch to the angel network. Jerome, what would you add, anything to add to that? No,
And maybe I can just add to that. So clearly, WAAM is only about mentorship, and when we do a match between a mentor and a mentee, we ask them to to sign a charter which protects from conflicts of interest. But this mentorship relationship only lasts 2 months, and then the mentorship goes outside of WAAM, and then it's whatever you do with the startup, that's not anymore of a WAAM concern. So I just wanted to flag this out, and if you have more questions related to this, Jérôme Legrand is the expert on the charter.
Yeah, Emily is very right in a sense that we wanted to really distinguish between strategic advice and anything else. It's very important. But is Jérôme there? Jérôme Legrand, the other Jérôme? I can't see them. If you want to say something. I know you cannot, right? Sorry. I think attendees cannot. So
then there was a question from Rich about are the startups connected to Wharton? So Emily, Jérôme, you want to talk about WHAM, and then Thomas can answer for the Angel Network.
Sure.
Jérôme,
Sorry,
you want to take this question?
I didn't get the question right. Sorry.
It's whether the startups at WAAM, so in the mentorship program, are connected to Wharton.
No, not at all. No. We do get startups from, and this is the exciting part also. We get startups from all over the place. We get startups from incubators. It's also a way to meet other incubators, other investment groups, and so on. Yeah. So no.
It's great as well, because then we, typically maybe a founder has a very much of a tech background, or a very different background. So we have some startups with founders that have a chemicals background, or consumer background, or whatever, and they don't necessarily have the business expertise that our mentors have, and so these can be very powerful mentorships where you really bring together very complementary skills.
When you look at the strategy, we hope that the skill, the experience of Wharton education and personal experience, is enough to apply to a lot of business and startup. Not necessarily requiring being the expert in the latest technology or the technology or for instance, the medicine, because we have some medical, startups that came. You don't have to be a doctor to look at a medical startup and see, if it makes sense or not, and see where you can help. So.
Thomas, do you want to?
On the angel investing side, it's useful to highlight that the angel network is really an integral part of the Wharton Club activities, and as such, a good proportion of our effort is to try to enhance the value of the network to our fellow alumni, be it entrepreneurs or investors. So with that, we very much welcome the Penn or Wharton related companies, and it can be a founder of the company, it can be a board member, it can be a major investor, and obviously we look for those opportunities, and we encourage our fellow alumni to bring their deals and their investing interest into the Wharton Alumni Angel Network. Equally, we treat all companies with attention to whether they are a good investment or not. So it may be an advantage for a company to be associated with Wharton, but the due diligence and decisions about investment are very much on merit. We are open to companies who have been recommended by Penn or Wharton alums. So there is no dramatic, barrier for companies that have an extended relationship with Wharton to apply.
And that includes if a mentor really likes a company and think it would be a great investment and passes it on to us if they happen to be in fundraising mode, then of course we would consider that as a recommendation from a Wharton alum. I think that answered Tracy's question as well. Tracy, unless you have some follow-up, let us know. There's a question from Mukul about some of the individual investments and ticket sizes. I'd say there was some data that we had on the screen. We've looked at both average and median. There's been a few large investments that have skewed the average up. That's why we had median as well. But as Thomas said, the average investment in a company has been about £50,000 collectively between all angel investors. And the average new investment has been £23,000, and the median new investment has been £18,000. If you add in follow-on investments, because a couple of our investors have done multiple investments into the same company, those numbers drop a little bit because follow-ons tend to be slightly smaller.
But from the perspective of individual tickets, it's really a decision of an investor as to how comfortable they feel with such investments. And in practical terms, it can be anything from 5 grand, 10 grand is most frequent, if you will, a ticket size. And to the extent that individuals feel good about what they've learned about the company in the due diligence, is very much up to them how much higher they want to go. Above 10. We clearly are at an early stage of development of the angel network. The more people who are interested in this activity, and by this I mean all our fellow alumni who are on this call and who might learn about this activity through either word of mouth or see the video later on. The more of us being interested in this activity and doing due diligence together, our ability to go up in size of collective ticket would improve our ability to spread the word about the Wharton Alumni Angel Network.
In terms of the types, he had a further question, Mukul, about what sorts of investments have we made? And to be honest, other than being using some sort of technology, high technology, there hasn't been a lot of, there hasn't been a cluster in any one particular subsegment of that. There's been some very high tech, very deep tech sort of investments in chip design for the Internet of Things. That was our most recent investment in a company called Angoka. There's some cybersecurity. There was some logistics. There was some a company that provides employers with actionable insights into workplace harm reduction. So there's been lots of different types of companies that have come through, all of them, though, utilizing tech. Ian has asked about, is there an investment committee? There's not a standing investment committee. It's there's a group of people that tend to have previously volunteered that have come time and time again. I saw Tat Singh on the call in the participants list earlier. Tat Singh's been on all the investment, the screening committees. But you know, this time we have, for the event on March 18th, we already have 5 or 6 people who volunteered, but we welcome volunteers. Like I said, depending on the number of applicants, there may be 2 or 3 rounds, 2 or 3 cuts. If we have 40 applicants, then, you know, it's more likely that we do 3 rounds. If we have only 20 applicants, then maybe we only do 2 rounds of cut. So it's a little bit illustrative, my example before, but Ian, if you're interested, you know, please do get in touch. Tracy asks, SEIS, EIS, yes, of course, if it's a UK investment. So far, all of our investments have been in the UK, but we are trying to broaden that. We did have one French company pitch last July, so they would not have been EIS eligible, but so far all of the companies that have received investments have been EIS eligible. Or SEIS. We actually had one that was SEIS. I think that was the same question from Mukul. Were there any questions that we missed?
There is a question in the chat. You know, people ask how they register for the WAAN event.
Right now, well, there will be.
If they're not UK members.
Yeah, so right now we're there. It will be on the WAAN, the Wharton Club of the UK website, but we'll also be distributing it out to the various clubs throughout Europe. We're still working a little bit on the logistics of that, just because of the cross club thing and everybody using slightly different platforms. It's a little bit complex. Because the other thing that we do need to do is. One of the things that we didn't talk about earlier was that people need to be either an accredited investor or a high net worth investor. And actually having these virtual events makes it easier to enforce that. So we just need to, you will get notified. Certainly everybody who registered for this event is going to get an email when we have all the details ironed out for the March 18th event. So don't worry about not getting it. We just have to work out the logistics of registration.
Equally, to the extent that you would like to get involved in the earlier stages of the process, screening, for example, do get in touch with either Doug or myself, and we'll get you involved earlier than the event itself.
Here's a message from Tat Singh. Thank you, Tat Singh. I'll just read it. As mentioned by Doug, I've been on all the investment committees and can definitely attest that it's a good experience where you can also get to interact with other alum. And there's also flexibility. You don't necessarily need to always participate in all investment committees depending on your schedule. Thank you for that. Good. There's Jerome. You're manning the chat, Jerome. Is there anything that we've missed?
No, I think that was the key question. You know, I think people are very interested in learning how to get more onto the investment and participate. Ian Tsakonas from Greece is interested to help review your deal flow and so on, which is exciting because Ian is himself a big startup investor. He's also part of the mentoring program. You know, he has brought us some companies to mentor, which is good. I mean, again, we want to separate the two activities, but it's very much involved. And we also have some Russians, probably too late tonight, but they're also startup investors. It was amazing meeting virtually so many Wharton people involved with startup, interested in startup and interested in helping. So that's very exciting. You know, I think it's maybe the first European initiative, as Emily always says. So, bringing Europeans together.
Plus British.
In a time of need.
Plus British, yeah. I mean, Emily brought us to Switzerland and Italy and now the UK, so, you know, wonderful.
Maybe I wanted to add something that we haven't mentioned for for our alumni who have never been a mentor before, Aviva Brooks has put together a little guide on how to start your mentorship and what exactly is a mentorship. So this is also something that we send to our mentors to help them, go through usually the first meeting, to make sure that they approach it in the right way. This is something new for them.
There is one more question by Ian, Doug. I know the answer, but I'll let you.
Is it in the chat or the?
It's in the question. This time, yeah, he found the question. He's asking, does it make sense to start a linking group to share the material and the information?
Yes, we are. There is a brand new LinkedIn group, but I do think for the Angel Network, the best place is probably going to be on Gust, because that's where all the deals are going to be. I will. We'll send around the slides to everybody after this. It has the Gust email and the WAAN presence on there, and that's where you register. If you really want to do due diligence on a company, you need to register through Gust. In fact, let me put it into the chat. That will take me 1 second, but others can talk while I'm trying to do that.
Yes, so from the perspective of participating and seeing the documentation, once you sign up to Gust, and we are able to if you will authorize you to access, you will have all the access to the documentation that is being submitted by the companies, and depending on your choice and time availability, you can either review the companies yourself or get into the chat and sharing function that is available on Gust to put forward your observations, and other members of the team will be able to see that, and a discussion and collaboration can be conducted this way.
There is also, I'm the question reader, there's also a question that just came from Gohav and says, in line with this discussion, was a good way to connect with Wharton alumni in Europe. And I would recommend, and she can speak because she's just a participant, but speaking with Aviva Brooks, in the WHAM program, she has, done a lot of communication through LinkedIn and through the various clubs. So Gohav, I would recommend you to speak with Aviva Brooks, who knows all this. I don't think there is one Central European way, but there is, couple different ways. So.
Yeah, the intention of this particular call that we are having right now was to bring together a number of clubs from across major European countries. The presidents and the leadership of those clubs in your country are most likely on the call, or someone from the leadership is on the call. So the longer term intention is indeed to allow the clubs to work closer, and we'll see how the events can be organized together. Given the use of electronics, it probably is much easier now to have cross-country events than it ever was before. So it may be put to all of us to actually try to organize events that would cross country boundaries.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for your interest. And you've all given us stuff to follow up with, and we will endeavor to get the slides out to everybody who registered in the next day or so. Have a good evening, everybody.
Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you for being on the call.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Stay